Okay, so we compared, being in perpetual job search to dating a little bit, but I think just kind of bringing it back to the point of, employment. I think like the overall theme is, as opposed to having like that old school mind frame of, I'm working, my head is down, I like my job, and then, now I'm not working, so now my head is up, and now I'm looking. You have to, transition more into the mindset of being in, a perpetual opportunist, I guess is like the best way to call it.
To harken back somewhat to the dating analogy, I think we're kind of living in different worlds here. I think that 20 years ago you could have compared dating and relationships directly to job searching, but the simple fact is that people don't stay in their jobs for 20 years anymore. People are career minded, they're growth minded, and in a lot of cases, in most cases, you have to leave companies to make those kinds of, to make the significant kind of progression you see the best professionals doing. So to compare it to dating, whatever the long-term goal is, still to stay in it for the pension, to compare that against a job world now that's constantly fluxing, constantly moving, people moving, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, we've seen a lot of people get burned whenever companies close and they've spent 10 years at a company. And their skills don't transfer anymore because they're so locked into one area. And this whole conversation is about being in perpetual job search mode. And the point of the matter is that that's okay now.
Right.
It's more than okay, it's mandatory.
I think independent contractors have this mentality 100% down. Like a professional independent contractor knows that they're not only an expert in doing what it is that they're paid for, but they're also an expert in finding their next gig. They're always networking, they're always interviewing, they're always like lining up their next contracts. And although full time, people still have that preconceived notion of like, we're in it for the long term, I need you to be with us, in it to win it sort of a mentality. But realistically, like the mindset's starting to shift towards that of an independent contractor. Like, yeah, maybe there is no fixed end to my tenure here, but I don't know when the date is, but for sure there's a fixed end to my tenure here.
Yeah, right? I think that it's a little naive not to approach things, to go into a job thinking you're going to retire their first out of college. Are there some people that do it? Yeah, they're genuinely that happy, but by and large, those people are either just skyrocketing through the ranks of their company, or they retire 2 steps above where they entered the company at.
Right.
And I think that's the inherent problem of that model, is that you get comfortable and you don't push yourself, and you don't tend to see the career acceleration that you get whenever you're in perpetual job search mode. I don't think that people necessarily need to be full-time employees. Don't need to be an independent contractor mindset. I mean, you should be staying with your company for at least 1.5 years, 2 years, whenever you make a full-time commitment. But unless you're just in a bad situation. But if you're in a good situation, stick with it for a little bit, finish the project you're on, but you should be continually and perpetually talking to people like us, talking to networking, talking to other CEOs of companies, other engineering managers, knowing what's going on out there. And if not, you're only hurting yourself at the end of the day. You think you're doing this big service to your company, maybe you are, but you're only hurting yourself at the end of the day.
And take some initiative. I think a lot of time people wait for us to call them before they consider making a move. If there's a new company out there that looks exciting to you, or there's a new technology that you want to learn, go out and pursue that. If you have friends that are working for a company that's doing big things, reach out to them. Go to social networking events that they have. Talk to the CEO. Put yourself in a position to learn more about the marketplace than just keeping your head down, doing your job, and getting complacent.
Right. So so now let's say someone is bought into the mindset of, okay, I'm now a perpetual opportunist, right? What are the actual things they need to be doing to to be embodying that sort of mindset? One, have a kept up to date resume. Just have it in your back pocket, right? Maybe they don't have to post it online. That's another thing. But have one in your back pocket, so if an opportunity does become available, you don't have to lag a week or 2 weeks, like a lot of people do, to update their resume, make this whole big project.
Perpetual job search can consist of 3 things. You're at least perpetually keeping your eyes and ears up. One is be informed. Read the trade press, read the trade mags, read blogs, do stuff like that. Something as simple, if you're in Seattle, John Cook used to write a great blog for the Seattle PI. He just recently left with Todd Bishop. They're going to go write a brand new blog and do their own thing. There's a ton of great information in a source like that for somebody in Seattle. If you're in San Francisco or stuff, there's places like TechCrunch and 1,000 different other blogs that have so much information that it just genuinely, you can read that one site every day and to some extent be in the loop. You can take our calls, talk to people like us who are well networked, well connected, have a conversation. A great recruiter, and we've talked a little bit about what makes a good recruiter. A great recruiter cares about what you want to do, about what's great for you. You just tell him, so this is what I'm looking for, this is ideal for me, this is what I'm good at, call me when you've got something. That should be your conversation with a recruiter, not, let me tell you about this phenomenal job. So take phone calls from good recruiters, and then be active in the community. Go out, network. Go to, a new company opens up shop in that new blog you're starting to read every day. Show up to their networking event. I mean, I think those are like the 3 core principles of perpetual job search.
Okay, so principle number 1, let's say they're reading blogs, right?
Yeah.
How do you go from reading a blog to like actively taking advantage of an opportunity? So you read a blog post about a company. What do? You go to the company site. Do you actually apply to the job? I'd probably not recommend that.
No,
I'm not.
Just because I think, I don't know, from a for an opportunist, I think that might be a little bit too direct. I think that's like confirming I want to work for your company. What I would say is maybe, in line with being more passive, is take advantage of sites like LinkedIn, Facebook, MySpace, where you are, networking, right? And maybe see if you have a connection that works for that company. So as opposed to sending in your resume, maybe approach a person and say, hey, it looks like the company you're working for looks interesting. Maybe we could have lunch one day and just talk about it. I'm not looking, but what you're doing looks interesting, and I don't know if there's an opportunity there for me or not.
I don't know if interviewing necessarily means that you want to move forward with the company. It just means you want to learn more about the position and what they're doing.
Well, do you
Now,
think companies interview people to just learn more about them? I think companies are interviewing people to
Some
hire.
companies that I do.
Really?
I have companies that I work with who are for sure career interviewers. That's all they do. They want to talk to everyone in the industry, and they're it's like from the candidate side where they're passively looking. They're passively looking at new candidates. They always want to be talking to people, always getting fresh faces, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to pull the trigger on anyone.
I'd see if I knew that about a company, I'd consider that to be a little bit of a shady practice,
Yeah.
like a shady way to gather insider information.
Well,
For sure,
once-
it's done, but I consider it to be a little bit, like a not pure action.
Well, that's entirely the reason why we qualify job orders, because
That's
we're
true.
trying to weed out the people who are not serious about hiring people.
That's true. And then
Some people just want to build their database.
You're right. And then flip side on the candidate side, we got to make sure the candidate's serious. But companies aren't always equipped to screen like the people that are truly interested in taking a job versus the window shoppers.
Right. Well, that's our job.
Yeah.
I think to an extent that you can't run a great consistent job search without using all 3 methods really. So your answer to the question of I'm reading a blog, I see a company I'm really pumped up about, I think, wow, this is exactly what I'd like to be doing with a company, because you've been to networking events, because you've kept your head up, because you've stayed connected to the community, because you've got somebody like one of us that you can call, pick up the phone, call me, say, hey, have you heard about these guys? Or, check out your network. By the time you see a new company come up, pop on LinkedIn, see who who already works there. If you're well connected, you at least know somebody who knows somebody who works there. So I think that's really where it comes into doing all 3 things. It can't just be on the blogs. It can't just be go out and go to networking events. It really needs to be all 3 things. It needs to be talking to us and doing all of that, so you have all the resources at your disposal whenever you come across that company that makes you go, huh, interesting.
But I think that's the difference between like somebody who's being opportunistic and looking at one of the sources and knowing what's going on in the market. That distinguishes them from somebody who's actively looking, who's talking to recruiters, who's going to networking events, who's looking on blogs, and who's talking to people at the company. We're already not talking about somebody who's being opportunistic. If like their company goes under, we're talking about somebody that to me is an active candidate.
I think the main point that we're hitting is people need to not look at things in the short term when it's your career. Don't look about going to work that day and doing your daily routine and leaving that day. Have more of a focus on where you want to be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now. Think about it in terms of what position do I want to be in, what technologies are going to be cool and interesting, what are people going to be doing 5 years from now. You always talk about, take that 10,000 foot perspective or that 1,000 foot perspective, and I think we're all guilty of it. We all get trapped in that 1,000 foot perspective, just going through our daily routine, and
Absolutely.
we don't take enough time to really find out what else is out there and focus on our careers and where we want to be in the future.
I think you bring up kind of an interesting point, or I think you allude to it at least, and I think this ties into what you're saying also. I don't think that makes an active candidate at all, because you have to look at managing your career like you would manage a business. If you were managing your business, would you just read the blogs and keep up on the trade press? Would you just know one person who was well networked in the community? No, you'd make every effort possible to know everything about your competitors, to know everything about what else is going on in the market, because you're physically managing an asset. That asset happens to be your career, and you can't manage that asset without as many tools that are available to you as possible. And I don't think that it makes you an active candidate, because you're constantly engaging those tools to make sure that you're getting the best bang for your long-term career. I think people sincerely fail to realize their career is an asset to be managed. And the more attention you pay, and the better you manage that, and the better you utilize the tools to manage that, the better off you're going to be. And I don't think that just because you use those tools makes you an active candidate, makes you a smart candidate.
I agree.
Probably makes you somebody who I'm going to be signing a contract from one day.
I think-
CTO, VP engineering, somebody who's really going to go somewhere in their career.
I think my opinion just altered because I look at candidates all day long who jump from job to job in 1 year, 2 years, 2 years here, 1 year there, and then their resumes just seem unattractive to me. And I'm sure companies look at it the same way, because those are people who are perpetually opportunistic. They see a new opportunity, they go for it. And then in the long term, they're like jack of all trades, master of none. They haven't done anything for extended amount of time. They jump from company to company, and then it makes their background less appealing to me.